So once again, we stand on the edge of Tisha B-av, the end of the 9 days. Not a time of joy, but a time of remembrance of the saddest days in the Jewish calendar. We've reviewed this in the past, and I won't review in detail the history of Tisha B-av. We know that many sad things happened. It was based on the moment in which the spies returned, the Miraglim returned with a negative report about God's ability to conquer the land of Israel. Both temples were destroyed at that time. The Inquisition peaked at that time. The First World War, which led to the Shoah, to the Second World War, began on the 9th of Av. And it seems that many of the tragedies of our people have been grouped into one day. And so we recognize this day as not just simply a day of tainus, of fasting. The laws of fasting apply on Tisha B-av, but on top of it, the laws of avelos, of mourning, apply as well, so that it combines both of these things. And let's review briefly what those laws are and how they apply. This year, we should add the Tisha B-av, which always is the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av this year falls on Shabbos, the happiest day of the year. So how do we deal with that? And after we review the basic laws of Tisha B-av, we'll review the uniqueness of what happens when Tisha B-av falls on Shabbos. All eating and drinking is forbidden. This includes the rinsing of the mouth, brushing of the teeth, except in great cases of distress. Swallowing capsules or bitter tablets or liquid medicine without water is permitted. The ill or the elderly, as well as pregnant and nursing women, are required to fast, even if it's difficult, unless a doctor says that fasting might injure the health, in which case your Rav should be consulted. Obviously, if a person is ill in a way that his health is endangered by fasting, that's always a priority, and one should not fast under those conditions. And certainly if your doctor tells you not to fast, then you should consult with your Rav, and I suspect that your Rav will agree with him and encourage you not to fast. The same God that requires us to fast on Yom Kippur and requires us to fast on Tisha B-av requires us not to fast when there could be complications attached to it, serious complications. A woman within 7 days of childbirth may not fast. She is considered a holy and ill person, and within 30 days shouldn't fast. So she may fast if she insists within the 30 days, but it's not advisable. Boys up to 12 years old and girls to 11 are not required to fast the entire day. There are various opinions as to whether they should fast part of the day. Some say that it's good for chinuch, for training, to skip breakfast, for instance. Certainly, food that is eaten, whether it's eaten by a child or it's eaten by an ill person, should not be fancy food. It's not food that's being eaten because to celebrate and enjoy the meal. It's merely for sustenance. It's what's required. So the simplest of foods should be eaten if it is required that one eats. It should not be the focus of the day. The next section is about bathing and washing. All bathing for pleasure is prohibited, even in cold water, including the hands, the face, and the feet. Ritual washing upon waking and using the bathroom, touching covered parts of the body, or before praying is permitted, but only up to the knuckles. So when you do nitiyot and the nitiyot yadayim in the morning, then you would wash up to these knuckles here, right? And you want to make sure that this area here is washed thoroughly as well when you're doing it, when you're washing. So that's permitted. One may wash dirty or sullied portions of the body, including cleaning the eyes of glutinous material, and if necessary may use soap or warm water to remove dirt or odor in that situation. Anointing for pleasure, that is to say oil or whatever, anointing for pleasure is prohibited, including oil, soap, alcohol, cream, or perfume. Anointing for medical reasons is permitted, as well as using deodorant. Marital relations. Since cohabitation is prohibited, a husband and wife should not come in contact during the night of Tisha B-av. So it's better to treat it almost like neither, you just don't have contact. Wearing leather. Now the issue, people often are confused about this, is not a question of wearing leather, it's a question of wearing leather shoes specifically. Even shoes made partially of leather are prohibited. Wearing leather shoes is permitted for medical reasons. So what about shoes that look like leather? So shoes that look like leather are a question because of Maras Ayin. Do you want to be in a situation where everybody you meet is looking at your shoes and wondering, does he know what the right thing to do today is? Or that you have to explain to them, it looks like leather, but it's not like leather, because the fake leather in shoes is really well done these days.
It looks really true.
It's better to wear, canvas sneakers or, Crocs or something that is clearly not leather shoes. It avoids people having to go through a mental question in their minds. Learning Torah. Since the heart rejoices at the study of Torah, it's prohibited to learn topics other than those relevant to Tisha B'Av or mourning. And we know some of those sections. We'll talk about them in a second. One may learn Eicha with its midrash and commentaries, portions of the prophets that deal with tragedy, and the third chapter of Moed Katan, which deals with the laws of mourning, and of course the story of the destruction of the temple of Gittin, right? Kamsa Bar Kamsa, that's right. 56b through 58a in Sanhedrin, in Gittin, and also Sanhedrin 104, and also Josephus. It says you can read as well. And the halachas of Tisha B'Av and mourning, you can read as well and learn. Additional restrictions. One should deprive himself of some comfort in sleep. Some reduce the number of pillows, some sleep on the floor.
Wow. Pregnant
women and elderly and ill people are exempt from this. Certainly somebody recovering from a serious operation should rest and heal. Sitting on a normal chair is forbidden until midday. One may sit on a low bench or chair, some people use a milk crate, or on a cushion on the floor. If you're somebody who has, again, if you're an ill person or old and it's very difficult for you to get up and down, you should consult your Rav in that situation. Greeting someone, this is a problem because it's so comfortable for us to say Shalom Aleichem, good Shabbos. We know that it's a big mitzvah to greet somebody before they greet you. And so we train ourselves to do that. We see somebody from a distance, we want to wave hi, say hello, how are you? Right? So on this day, we are mourners. Right? Mourners are not greeters. Greeting someone with good morning is prohibited. One who is greeted should answer softly and, if possible, inform the person of the prohibition. There's a question whether you could nod, recognizing each other, but you have to be careful about these things. Things that divert from mourning, as reading the newspaper or taking a walk, are prohibited. The custom is to refrain until midday from any time-consuming work that diverts one from mourning. In case of financial loss, consult your local Rav. Unlike, say, Pesach or Yom Kippur, you're not prohibited from working, but you shouldn't work on a day that we're trying to remember this tremendous loss. Right? And some say that you won't profit from the work that you do. They like to. Prayer. Ashkenazim do not wear tefillin as shachris, nor is a blessing made on your tzitzit. At mincha, Tefillin is donned, is worn, and those who wear a talit gadol, the big talis, make a blessing then. At Mincha, the prayers of Nachem and Anenu are added to the Shemona Esrei during the blessing of Yerushalayim and Shema Kolenu, respectively. Sim Shalom is said in place of Shalom Rav. If one forgot them and completed the bracha, he need not repeat the prayer. So those are the basics of what Tisha B'Av is, and as you can see, some of the prayers that are added are associated with fasting. There are a couple of things that we don't say in the morning brachas when we get up, because we don't have all the things that we wish we would have. Normally we thank God for having everything. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I'd like to review, because as I said at the beginning, this is a very unusual Tisha B'Av in the sense that it falls on the happiest day of the year, Shabbos. And we don't harm Shabbos, the mood of Shabbos, because we don't mourn on Shabbos. Even someone who is a personal mourner, who's lost somebody close to them, on Shabbos they go to shul, they don't mourn. Right? They're required to not mourn on Shabbos, and so it is for the nation. We're mourning really for these 3 weeks and for the 9 days, and now on Tisha B'Av, but not on Shabbos. On Shabbos we can drink wine, we can eat meat, we celebrate Shabbos, we sing Zmiros, at the table. So Shabbos remains a time of joy. But what happens when the one day of the year, Yom Kippur is not a sad day. Yom Kippur is a tremendously joyous day. We fast. But really the source of fasting is not the same source as the fast of Tisha B'Av, which is really combined with mourning. We're trying to be like angels on Yom Kippur, who don't have appetites, who don't eat. Right? And we focus, we take all of our time that we might devote to eating or to other things and focus it on our relationship with Hashem on Yom Kippur. And we know the results. The results are always good. Sadly, when we come to Tisha B'Av after 3 weeks of recognizing this pain and this loss, and we still have Tisha B'Av, maybe we won't. We still have a day, but maybe we won't have Tisha B'Av this year. It means that we have not accomplished what was required. The temple is not rebuilt, Mashiach is not with us. So we still have what to mourn for. And it says that the generation that doesn't rebuild the temple is as the generation that was part of the destruction of it. So we have a lot to mourn for when the time comes. But what do we do on Shabbos? And the answer is we recognize that the 9th of Av is Shabbos, but we don't commemorate it on Shabbos. We push it off a day, right? And we commemorate it on the 10th of Av, which is Sunday of this week. So there are some unique traditions and halachas involved with what happens when you push off Tisha B'Av for one day. And so I would like to review those from guidelines. When Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos or Sunday. What are the main changes when Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos or Sunday? When Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, the main changes are: 1. The fast is postponed till Sunday. 2. Bathing is permitted on Rosh Chodesh. It's a separate thing, we're already past it. Marital relations are forbidden on Friday night. This is very unusual because Friday night and Shabbos are associated with the intimacy of the Shekhinah and also the intimacy of husband and wife. And this is the only, to the best of my knowledge, the only time on a Friday night, perhaps on Yom Kippur, when it's prohibited to have relations. Washing any part of the body with hot water is forbidden on Shabbos. When Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos or Sunday, the main changes are: there's no special Suda HaMafech. This is the Suda before Tisha B'Av. It's associated with the fast day, and it has ashes in it, and it's a time of really preparing for the fast. It's the last meal. But this year, the last meal before Tisha B'Av is not going to be that meal. It's going to be a joyous meal, as always, called Suda Shlishi, the third meal. Some of the laws of Tisha B'Av begin only at nightfall on Motzi Shabbos instead of at sunset. Normally Tisha B'Av begins at sunset, but because we don't want Tisha B'Av to push into Shabbos the way we normally have the fast push into the day before, we say no, it can't begin at sunset because we're still in Shabbos, and we don't leave Shabbos until actually 3 stars at nightfall. So that's when we really begin Tisha B'Av this year. Havdalah is postponed until Sunday night. When Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos and is postponed to Sunday, is the preceding week considered as the week in which Tisha B'Av occurs? If you remember last week, we were talking about the fact that the 9 days is one separation. There's the 3 weeks, the 9 days, and then there's another separation, which is the week of Tisha B'Av, in which there's an increase in the elements of mourning, and then Tisha B'Av itself. So the question is, when did the week of Tisha B'Av begin? Did it begin this past Sunday, or does it begin at the moment that Shabbos comes in this week? The answer is to this question is there are different opinions about this.
There's always a different opinion.
And therefore, because there are different opinions, one should be strict about this concerning the laundering and haircuts, which we don't do during the last week.
We haven't cut the hair since the 3 weeks, right? We haven't been able to cut the hair.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And one may be lenient about matters concerning meat and wine, cutting nails, and making clothes. So those things which we don't usually do in the last week, during the 9 days, they're saying that this is particularly affects Sparta more than Ashkenazim. We can be a little bit lenient on. May a woman immerse in a mikveh on Friday night that is Tisha B'Av. So this week is Tisha B'Av. So can a woman who has finished her cycle immerse in a mikveh going forward into the next time of her life, of the month, right? And the answer is, because you would think not on Tisha B'Av, right? It's a sad time and that's associated with joy. The answer is yes, in this case, marital relations are permitted. This is the one exception to the rule that I just spoke about earlier, is that if this is the end of her period of Tameh and she becomes Tahara in the mikveh, that unlike all other couples, this couple is permitted and in fact encouraged to have marital relations on the Shabbos. Okay. May a man immerse in a mikveh on Shabbos morning that is Tisha B'Av. If he immerses every Shabbos morning or whenever he is Tameh, he may immerse, but only in a cold mikveh. So he doesn't have to, but he may, and it's going to be cold.
In a cold one, right?
Are there any changes to the prayers in this situation when, not referring to the mikveh, but referring to when it falls on a Friday night? Yes, Tzidkascha is not said at Mincha, and Perkei Avos is not read at Mincha, because one is a distraction, and the other is a curious phenomenon that Tisha B'Av is also considered a moed. It's a holiday actually as well. God willing, if not this year, next year, instead of talking about the laws of fasting, we'll talk about the laws of feasting on Tisha B'Av. Yeah. We'll be celebrating the birthday of Mashiach in Yerushalayim by the Beis Hamikdash. May one sing and throw treats when a chassan is called to the Torah. Right? According to the prevalent custom, this is permitted.
Do people get married on Tisha B'Av?
We said that a person could get married prior to. Under what conditions could he get married?
Right? Or would he get called to the Torah?
And what conditions could he be? We don't make weddings during the 3 weeks. It's a very good question. There are some extreme situations, I guess, where a person might get married.
I think he has to or something. Time limit.
Well, there are some extreme reasons why a person might. But so that's the answer, is that you can.
Yeah.
May one hold a public kiddush on this Shabbos. If the kiddush can be held on a different Shabbos, it's preferable to defer it. If the kiddush cannot be held on a different Shabbos, for instance, Chassan, it's permitted. May one eat meat and drink wine at the Shabbos meals? Yes, this is permitted even at Seudah Shlishi, because Seudah Shlishi is already on the cusp of Tisha B'av. The sun is going down at that point. Right? May one invite guests to Shabbos meals? Yes, however, one should not invite a guest to Seudah Shlishi unless he does so regularly. So if you have somebody who comes to your house every week on Seudah Shlishi, you're welcome to do it, but you shouldn't invite somebody special for that. May one sing Zmiros at the Shabbos meals? Yes, this is permitted even at Seudah Shlishi. May one go for a stroll on Shabbos? And the answer is no. When the 9th of Av is Sunday, when the 9th of Av is on Sunday, one may not go for a stroll on Shabbos after Halachah noon. So that's to say, that's not true in this case, right? However, when the 9th of Av is on Shabbos, which is this year, one may not go for a stroll at any time during the day. You stay home. Mm-hmm. The idea is you're focused on issues of mourning and the loss. May one visit family and friends? No. May one learn Torah on this Shabbos? Before Halachah midday, Chatzos, it's permitted to learn Torah. After Halachah midday, many opinions permit learning Torah. If a person can limit himself to the topics that are permitted on Tisha B'av, he is praiseworthy. It is permitted to recite the Sedra and the Targum of the day, of Parshat Devarim. When Halachic midday is, hang on for 1 second, folks, I'll be right back. I just want to check.
Halachic midday is not exactly noon, it's like 1 or 2 o'clock or something.
No, it's 12, it's halfway through the 12 daylight hours. Mm-hmm. So it seems around midday Tisha B'av is 1:23 p.m. In Toronto, in Thornhill. And after that, you're permitted to sit on a full chair. We'll talk about that later.
You mean after 1:23 p.m. on Sunday? In our case?
Yes.
You'll be able to sit on regular chairs?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But that's only in Thornhill and Toronto, so you should consult your Jewish calendar for
your time zone,
as to what time, and your location within the time zone as to what time is Halachic midday Chatzos for you. Okay, so where were we? Tisha B'av, he is praiseworthy. Okay, it's permitted to recite the Sedra and the Targum all day of the Parsha. Okay, next one. May one take pills on Shabbos to alleviate the pains of fasting? That is, you're taking pills in advance to do it, right? It's permitted to take them on Shabbos until sunset, only if they are mixed with food or drink. One should preferably prepare the mixture before Shabbos. One may take them without water on Motzei Shabbos unless they are a pleasant taste, right? Because if they have a pleasant taste, then you're actually just eating, chewable vitamin. And you should consult your Rav about issues of coated pills as well as to what they're considered. May a communal Seudah Shlishi be held in shul? No, everybody should eat at home. It's not a time. There's joy connected to a gathering, and this is not a time.
Sure.
Are there any other changes to Seudah Shlishi? Although any food may be served, including meat and wine, and mirrors may be sung, the mood should be somewhat subdued. A person should not say that he is eating in order to have strength to fast, but he may think this. One must stop eating and drinking before sunset, since the fast begins at this time. People should be reminded about this. I'll repeat it. One must stop eating and drinking before sunset. This is not before 3 stars, but before the sun goes down, since the fast begins at this time.
We're talking about Saturday night here.
This is Saturday night, right? So, in our case, again in Thornhill, what we're saying is all eating and drinking should conclude before 8:45 p.m. in Thornhill. Again, check with your local Jewish calendar or your Rav as to what time it is in your locale. People should be reminded about this restriction because it's unlike regular Shabbos. What does that mean? Is that, as you know, that if you don't wash, by the way, for the third meal, and there are some who don't, then you're in the same situation as you are every Shabbos. But if you're a person who washes for the third meal, very often the third meal goes way past Shkia, past sunset, because you've washed, and there's no restriction to continue eating if you've washed, if you're in the meal. But this year, that restriction exists. So even if you've washed, you have to complete eating before Shkia, before sunset. So must one bench before sunset? It's permitted to bench after sunset, but one should try to wash Mayim Achronim, the final waters, before sunset if possible. And that's often really part of the nature of benching. So clearly they're suggesting benching should be done before sunset.
Earlier.
Yeah. May one bench with a zimun, with more than 3 people? Yes, you can. May one eat or drink after Suda Shlishi? If one benched before sunset, one may eat or drink until sunset. It's not necessary to have this in mind when benching. I'm not sure that I fully understand that. We'll have to look at it in a little more detail. Which prohibitions of Tisha B-av commence at sunset? All the prohibitions except the wearing of shoes and the sitting on the chair commence at sunset. Shkia.
You would be sitting on a chair at sunset, not wearing
After sunset, you would sit. For instance, if you're at home, you should at least remove the pillows from your chairs.
So sit on
so you're sitting on the
like
frame
a couch
of the chair.
that has take their pillow.
Yeah, exactly. A couch with that pillow. So you're sitting.
My son regularly does that when he's playing. So.
Okay, for him, every day is a joyous Tisha B-av. It should be for all of us.
Yeah.
The 2 prohibitions, wearing shoes and sitting in chairs, commence at sunset. These two activities are permitted until nightfall. All prohibitions except the wearing of shoes, that's to say canvas shoes, or non-leather shoes, and sitting on a low chair, commence at sunset, for instance, fasting. But the other activities are permitted until nightfall. When should one change one's shoes and Shabbos clothes? This is a very complex thing that should be thought out ahead. There are 2 customs. Some go to shul before nightfall and begin Mariv at the usual time of Motzi Shabbos. The Chazan should say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'Chol, remove his shoes, and then say Baruch Hu. The congregation should respond to Baruch Hu and then remove their shoes. Care must be taken not to touch one's shoes when removing them, because if you do, you should wash your hands again. And that's an issue on Tisha B-av, to unnecessarily wash your hands. Clothes are not removed until one returns home after Mariv. This is the prevalent custom in Chutz La'aretz. So how do you manage this? Some shuls delay the commencement of Mariv, allowing people to remain at home until nightfall. At the time of Motzi Shabbos, everyone should say the phrase Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'Chol, remove his shoes, and change into weekday clothes before Mariv. This is the prevalent custom in Eretz Yisrael, and it seems that's the custom here at this shul. According to the first custom, may one bring Tisha B-av footwear to shul before Mariv, because you're going to change where you can do it. Excuse me. Even if there's an eruv, it is forbidden to carry your shoes to shul, since one may not prepare on Shabbos for Motzi Shabbos. It's also forbidden to change one's shoes before going to shul, since this is disgracing Shabbos. You should wear Shabbos shoes. You're still in Shabbos, right? It's therefore advisable to leave suitable footwear in shul before Shabbos to wear on Motzi Shabbos. Right? That many people do. If a person usually waits until the time of Rabbeinu Tam, when should he change his shoes and clothes? The local custom should be followed. Right? So again, speak with your Rav. Is bracha recited over the spices? Right? Do we say besamim? The answer is absolutely no. It's forbidden to smell spices on Tisha B-av. We don't do it for any reason. Is the bracha recited over a Havdalah candle? Yes, according to one custom, it is recited in shul before the reading of Eicha. According to another custom, it is recited at home before Mariv, if there is time. According to some opinions, the bracha should be recited over 2 regular candles and not over a braided Havdalah candle. But you can do it over a Havdalah candle. Is a woman obligated to recite this bracha of Havdalah? If possible, she should listen to the bracha being recited by a man. However, this is not possible because he's rushing to shul. Most opinions permit her to recite the bracha herself. What if a person forgot or missed this bracha before Eicha? He should recite it later in the evening. Are there any changes to the Mariv service? The 2 chapters of Tehillim customarily sung before Mariv are omitted. Vayihi Noam and Vayiten Lecha are omitted. May a man fold his talis on Motzi Shabbos? And I think the answer is yes. May one wash the Shabbos dishes on Motzi Shabbos? This is something I didn't know. And the answer is no. They may not be washed until Tisha B-av afternoon, till after 1:23.
To 1:23.
Yeah.
So if you have your third meal, right? The third meal we're discussing.
Yeah.
If you use dishes, you can't wash them until 1:23.
You should wash. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, if they absolutely disgust your wife, right, an exception can be made, but one should again check with his Rav about that. Should a person who is not fasting recite Havdalah before eating? Right, because they were in Shabbos, right, and they didn't say Havdalah. Why? Because of Tisha B-av. But if they're eating, what's their status? Yes, he should say Havdalah. However, if she only needs to drink water throughout the fast, then she should not recite Havdalah. Should such a person recite Havdalah immediately on Motzi Shabbos or wait until he needs to eat? He should wait until he needs to eat. See the question at 198. We don't need to. Which sections of Havdalah are recited? It's important. The introductory verses and the bracha over spices should be omitted. The bracha over candles should be omitted if he already recited it or heard it at the termination of Shabbos, or if he is reciting Havdalah during the day. Okay, so you don't need to do it twice. And of course, wine. Should Havdalah be recited over wine, grape juice, or another drink? According to most opinions, beer is the most preferred drink. This is the Sunday Havdalah. This is Sunday Havdalah. If this is not possible, some opinions prefer the use of a drink that is of national importance. A Rav should be no
national importance.
No, but a national drink.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
And by the way, some would say in some countries beer is the national drink. Some would say the Coke is. It's a kosher drink. You know, that's something that has a level of importance to it, but not wine. Right? You know, some might say a good latte. You know, qualifies. According to most opinions, beer is the most preferred drink. If this is not possible, some opinions prefer the use of Chamad Medina, the national drink. that has of national importance, or Rabbi should be consulted to ascertain which drinks qualify for this purpose, because in different places there are different drinks. Other opinions question the use of such drinks and prefer the use of grape juice, because you shouldn't be using wine. If nothing else is available, wine may be used. If wine or grape juice is used, should the cup be given to a child to drink? If a child above the age of 6 is available, a cup should be given to him. If not, the person who recites the Havdalah should drink the cup himself. How much of the cup should be drunk? A cheekful only. May other members of the family fulfill the mitzvah by listening to this Havdalah. If Havdalah is being recited by a man, they may fulfill their obligation this way and will not be required to recite Havdalah after the fast. Are children obligated to recite Havdalah before they eat? According to most opinions, they do not recite Havdalah before eating. After the fast, may one eat or drink before Havdalah. With the exception of water, it is forbidden to eat or to drink or anything before Havdalah. And this also applies to women. Okay. Which drink should be used for Havdalah? One should use wine or grape juice. The person who recites Havdalah should drink the cup himself. Which parts of Havdalah are recited? Only the 2 brachas, Borei Pri Hagafen and Hamavdil. The introductory verses are omitted, as are the brachas over spice and candle. What if he forgot to recite the bracha over the candle on Motzi Shabbos? The bracha is still omitted.
If it's Saturday night, I'm sorry. Motzi Shabbos,
yeah.
Saturday night, the Havdalah. Okay.
Yeah. If there is bread on the table, when reciting Havdalah, should it be covered? Yes, one should cover the bread as he does when reciting Kiddush. If a person wishes to eat bread immediately after Havdalah, should the after bracha be said on wine? Yes, if he forgot to say the after bracha, it should not be said during the meal. He should have in mind when benching at the end of the meal that he wants the benching to include the wine. Is one obligated to eat bread in place of the missed Mo'avim al Kamil? No, there is no obligation to eat bread. Okay, then it goes into the 10th of Av.
The day following.
The day following. In this case, it's Monday. So it's a kind of curious day, and I'm just going to skip to what they say here. When are the differences if the fast is postponed to Sunday on the 10th of Av? Meat and wine are forbidden on Sunday evening. That is to say,
after fast, you're still not eating meat and wine?
That's right.
Okay.
But normally you're not permitted to eat it till Chatzos the next day.
To the lunch.
Right, till after lunch the day. In this case, however, it's permitted Monday morning.
No.
You can have a steak for breakfast.
Because we postponed the...
Because it's not really the 10th of Av, it's the 11th of Av. Right. Some opinions permit listening to music on Sunday evening, but some permit it only Monday morning. Again, this would normally be postponed until Monday after lunch. All other restrictions are lifted immediately after the fast, Sunday night. So that is the unusual nature of Tisha B-av this year when it falls on Shabbos. Let us hope that the fact that it falls on Shabbos and is mitigated by Shabbos this year is a sign that next year Tisha B-av will be entirely Shabbos, that it'll be a time of fasting and celebration. There's a concept that it is the birthday of Mashiach, not meaning the day necessarily in which Mashiach is actually born, that he was born hopefully many years ago and is a mature adult. But together we can celebrate his birthday in the Beis Mikdash in Yerushalayim with the temple rebuilt next year. So that's our hopes for that this should be the last Tisha B-av of fasting, and the next Tisha B-av should be one of feasting.
Right. I have questions.
Yes.
Okay, the shoes that took me for there. Technically, you're supposed to wear nice shoes for Shabbos. You're supposed
Shabbos
to get
shoes.
nice clothes.
That's right.
Okay, so
good weather shoes.
Let's say Friday night you go to shul. That's starting Shabbos. You wear your nice shoes. You come home after you have your Shabbos meal. The next morning, Saturday morning, Shabbos in the morning,
right.
You go to shul. You're supposed to wear fancy shoes.
Shabbos shoes.
Shabbos shoes. The thing is, you can't carry the non-fancy shoes.
Right.
Because it's
That's
you
right.
can't. So okay, so let's jump ahead. You go the half day. We have kiddush. Then people usually go home, and then we come back to shul for Marav. Mincha Marav.
Right.
The problem is we're still in Shabbos. You can't carry your not so nice shoes.
Correct.
And if you went home after Shabbos, after kiddush, you went home. You do take your shoes off when you get in your house. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Your fancier shoes or whatever.
Some people do. Canadians often do.
Yeah, Canadians often do. Okay, but when you come back from Mincha Marav, Mincha is still in Shabbos. You shouldn't be wearing the non-fancy shoe because you're still technically in Shabbos.
That's right.
So like, you know what I mean? Like you wear the non-fancy shoes.
So the question is, how do you manage the situation?
Yeah.
So there's the point that we made earlier is that there's two ways to manage it.
Yeah.
Some shuls, mostly in Eretz Yisrael, but there are other shuls as well, begin Marav long enough after 3 stars that people have time to change into their shoes and come back to shul for Marav, into their Tisha B-av canvas shoes.
But they went to shul for Mincha and came back home then again.
Everybody comes home for mincha. Many people have an early mincha in time because they're going to come home and they're going to have Seudah Shlishi.
Oh, I see. Because at Chabad
right?
we do like a back-to-back Mincha Marav all the time.
I don't think you'll do it this year.
Oh, not
this Shabbos.
Not for this particular Shabbos.
No.
Other Shabbos, I always go for Mincha. I meet them, for Mincha. Then we have Marav. We sit sing in the.
There's normally a little separation. You have mincha.
That's right.
People have some fruit or something like that and do a little bit of learning. In most shuls, the Chabad is an exception to this because they don't wash for the third meal. But in almost all of the shuls, people wash for the third meal. It's a full meal. It's considered to be a very high-level meal, and the reasons why Chabad doesn't wash, I don't want to go into the details of it, but they have their own reasons for it, why they don't wash. And their own understanding of it. But if you don't wash, then the norm is to stop eating before shkiach, before sunset. But if you do wash, you can continue eating long after sunset. It's not an issue. So very often the period between Mincha and Marav is extended on Shabbos. You have an earlier Mincha and Seudah Shlishi because it can be elaborate, and then Shabbos, then you bench and you go into long after dark, and then you
so but
say
if you go to Mincha and do all that and come back home, then Shabbos ends, you could put on your non-fancy shoes and go back to Marav.
So what will happen in some shuls this year, one of the options is you finish Mincha, you go home, you have a quiet Seudah Shlishi, you recognize that as the sun is setting, that Tisha B-av is coming in. Once the sun has set, once the 3 stars are out, you say L'havdil ben kodesh v'chol, which indicates a separation, right? And you change your shoes. In this case, that's around 9:30, 9:36, I think, in Toronto. And at that point, you change your shoes. The 3 stars are out. It's nighttime. There's no question Shabbos is over, and whether or not you say anything or not, Shabbos has ended, right? And Tisha B-av is clearly in full swing. You stopped eating more than an hour ago, with shkia. So now you say L'havdil ben kodesh v'chol, you're in Tisha B-av, and you change your shoes. You're still at home, and you go to shul, and Marav is, in the case of this shul, at 10 o'clock at night. So you have 24 minutes between saying L'havdil ben kodesh v'chol. You're not doing any davening, that's all you're saying. Put on your shoes and get to shul. That's one possibility. More common in North America is that you have to take into account and plan for this. So what you'll do is, before Shabbos, you get to shul on Friday a little bit early with your shoes. preferably not holding your shoes for a number of different reasons.
The non-fancy shoes.
Your Tisha B'av shoes. And you will, bring the bag of shoes, hopefully with your name on it, because there's a lot of other bags of shoes there, and then maybe some exactly the same shopping bag as yours. So you want to put a piece of tape around yours to recognize that it's yours or whatever. And then after Baruch Hu is said, there's a moment where the Chazan changes his shoes, and everybody else changes their shoes without physically touching the shoes. Because if we touch the shoes, then we should wash our hands, and we're in Tisha B'av, so we don't want to wash our hands unnecessarily. So you're really trying quite hard to slip one off and slip the other on at that moment. But that's how you deal with the shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Perfect.
Okay. So as I said, hopefully this year will be the last year that the fact that Shabbos is happening to lessen the impact of Tisha B'av is a sign that next year Tisha B'av will be a Tisha B'av feasting, not one of fasting. Amen.
Amen.